Here at Anthology, we like to take the Blue Church mentality and turn it into a welcoming group family deal. And we start every service here with a CBA, which is a community building activity. So this morning, what I'd like everybody to do is just think of your plans that you have for Easter and any Easter traditions that you may have, and just kind of amongst yourselves in each row, share with each other either your Easter plans or kind of any Easter traditions that you may have. I'm going to give everybody a couple of minutes just to introduce one another. Again, if you're new, welcome. If you're not, you kind of know how this goes. And just introduce yourselves, and I'll give everybody a few minutes to go through that.
Why don't you scoot up, baby?
And then you post that one on the website later? Or
I'm trying. I just got the YouTube.
Alright guys, let's wrap it up. And Evan to give announcements. Thank you for your time.
Once again, welcome to Anthology. My name is Frank. I work here. This man is Evan. He works here, but he doesn't get paid. So at least he gets a round of applause. Do me a favor. We're still a church plant, but we're hoping to get things in better working condition. Raise your bulletin if you were handed one as you walked in. All right. Now, okay, if you were not handed a bulletin, would someone grab a stack of bulletins so we can pass those out? We're working on getting everything in better condition for our grand opening in 2 weeks, okay? I'm going to pause for just 1 second while he brings that in, and I'm actually going to ask Evan if you can announce the Good Friday service.
Okay.
I have a flyer here.
So not this Friday, but the Friday after that is Good Friday, and we're going to host a celebration at the Ruggs house. If you don't know where that is, we have flyers here. They'll be out on the welcome table for you. And it's just a time for us to gather together as a church and remember the loss that Christ had to make for us to be saved and to celebrate the birthday that is Easter. So we would love if you all came. And we've got, like I said, flyers out in the front if you want to take it.
Awesome. And Doug, can I get one of those as well? I'd like to show everyone. All right, just about everyone has one now. First off, I'd like to give a big special shout out to our very own Karen that's been working tirelessly to put this together. Hey, all right, guys, so we want to introduce this into the routine of how we welcome people to our church. So on the inside, you can see that you have a welcome card. Every week, I'm going to let everyone know that if you're new here, you go ahead and give us your information there. We'll put that into our system. It'll help us better stay in touch with you. And on the back side, whether you're new or not, you can place a detailed prayer request. And we're going to be praying for you throughout the week. Once you're done filling this out, you're going to place it in the offering basket, which is going to be passed around after the announcements, just like usual. Now back to this bulletin here on the front. You see that it has a tiny map here. And you're saying, well, it's kind of late for a map, right? Because we're already here. No, we want this to serve as a way that you can give as an invitation for someone else to come to our church. As you open it up, you'll find that it has a bunch of information on the multiple ministries our church has to offer. So if you hand this to someone, they're going to see that our youth group, that we have a youth group. You're going to see the information for Evan to contact him to find out where we're meeting, what time, all that good stuff. You're going to see that we currently have a women's Bible study that meets on Thursday nights. Some of you coming here for months didn't know we had one. Once again, church plant. Underneath that, there's a Marietta home group that's going to be opening soon. Paris home group that's going to be opening soon. We want to be able to offer opportunities for people all the way from Temecula out to Moreno Valley. You'll see that there's going to be a mother-daughter group that's starting up very soon as well. You're going to see information for our Easter service, about our children's ministry called Epic Kids. Again, you may have been here from day one and didn't know until right now that our children's ministry is called Epic Kids, church plant. Underneath that, and then how to give as well. On the back there, it has just a brief explanation of who we are. Let me read through that really quick if I can. It says, Anthology is a church on a mission. We want to make disciples who make disciples. It's as easy as it gets. Discipleship is the process of becoming more like Jesus. We want to help our people discover where they are in the discipleship process and how to take the next step. I won't explain these steps, but they are salvation, honeymoon, desert, steady growth, and disciple others. Then a brief listing of our staff members there, and at the bottom, how you can contact us. That is my personal phone number because I couldn't trick anyone else in putting their phone number on the bulletin. So if you want to come and call, talk, hang out, just come and let me know. And then it brings us to our last announcement, which is a little thing known as our grand opening, baby! That was kind of okay. Let me tell you a little bit about it to get you excited, and then I'll do the whole yelling thing again, okay? Anthology grand opening. It's 2 Sundays from today. I'll be talking about it a little bit more during our message, which is April 16th, 10:30, same time. You can see all of our social media handles there, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. And on the back, you can see the theme for the new series we're beginning on Easter. I was advised from a very wise man from Corona, that's all you need to know about him, that we should start a new series on Easter Sunday. It's going to be Disney themed, specifically what I learned from Easter, what I learned from Disney. You see down there at the bottom, April 16th, Easter Sunday. The title of that message is The Greatest Story Ever Told. We're going to take Disney themes, and I'm going to show how they stole all of them from the Bible. It's going to be fantastic. The next week will be what I learned from Moana. After that would be what I learned from Beauty and the Beast. Everyone's been asking, is it the cartoon movie or the new one? And I'm going to leave you in suspense. The week after that, it's the most excitement I get my whole week. The week after that is what I learned from Frozen. So would you do me a favor? Take these. Again, they're on the welcome table on your way out. And would you please hand these to the people within your spheres of influence? Even though Easter attendance is dropping here in America, it's still the most highly attended Sunday in the entire year. It is the easiest time you're going to find to get someone to come to church. Write them, encourage them, kidnap them, whatever you need to do. Help us get some people here so we can touch people with the life-changing message of the gospel. And on that, we're going to pass around our offering. I'll ask Evan to pray for us.
Let's pray. Lord, we take this time to be in your presence and acknowledge that you're here with us. Thank you for gathering us all together safely. I pray that you bless this time. I pray that you bless Frank's words, what he's about to share. And I pray that you bless us abundantly in every way that we need. We're coming up on officially launching, and it's a big step for us. And I just pray that we as a community, we give wholeheartedly and selflessly, not in the sense that we have to, but that we want to, Lord. We want to serve your kingdom. We want to grow together. Bless this time, and thank you for loving us. Amen.
Thank you so much. Isn't he just such a handsome guy? All right, guys. I need just a few seconds to get ready here before we give the message. And I thought this would be a great time to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm in the middle of a bit of a conundrum. Some time ago, when I first bought this shirt, a close friend of mine said that it looked like a woman's blouse. And so what I want to do is I want to settle that matter today. Let me give you a few seconds. Talk with people sitting in your row and let them know what your vote is. After that, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand for a vote that I can be a part of. to find out if I'll be leaving the church early today or finishing the sermon. Okay? So do me a favor, chat with your friends, let them know if I wear women's clothes. Would you please? They're not flowers. It's not a flower print. It's like snowflakes and hashtags. Okay, we got to jump into this thing. But I have to know what you think, okay? Here's your two options to vote. There's only two. The first one is going to be, yes, that is a woman's blouse. You should not be moving forward with the grand opening. Okay? The second option is going to be no, your masculinity is completely intact. Okay? You get to vote just for one, because both would be just as confusing as the shirt I'm wearing. Okay? So raise your hand if one, yes, this looks like a woman's blouse to you. Yeah, I don't know if the camera caught all that, but my buddy, you know who you are. Only one person raised their hand. Only one. Raise your hand if you believe that my masculinity is completely intact. God bless you! Yes! Well, with that, I have the confidence to pray and to share God's word this morning. Let's begin. Father, we love you. I'm super blessed to be here with this, the extension of my family. We were adopted by blood, the very blood of God. So I pray that you would help us to take that seriously. I pray that that truth, along with the truths we're going to cover this morning, would sink into our minds and deeper into our hearts so as to transform the way that we live. And I'm going to piggyback on Evan's beautiful prayer earlier that you would bless us as we move into the most important season of our church's life so far. Give us courage. Give us love. And fill us with compassion for our neighbors, for our distant family members, for our friends, and for our co-workers. I ask, Father, you would help us to take that next step to simply extend an invitation, trusting that you'll take them from there. We love you and ask to speak to us now. In Jesus' name, amen. Folks, this past month has been a little crazy. Would anyone here agree with that? We began a new series titled, We Lost, which was quickly interrupted by that nasty migraine I got. You guys remember that migraine?
Yeah.
For those of you that prayed for me, I appreciate it. It really helped. For those of you that didn't pray, you're dead to me. We also anointed our fantastic youth pastor, Justin Wells, who's not here this morning. Yes, thank you, Pastor. He's preparing to marry that beautiful woman, our very own Lindsay, in just 6 days. So if you guys are watching, which I think you are, go get him, Justin! That's what I'm talking about. Last week, we had Daryl Lackey, president of the Inland Empire Southern Baptist Association, come and speak here for the first time. And I don't know about you, but I am richly... Is everything okay down here? Okay. I am richly blessed by what he had to say. We also saw one of the highest weekly attended services that we've had here at the school with 70 people. Now, yes, that includes the children. In the pastor circles I roll with, they always ask, does that include the kids? And I hang my head and I say yes. This past month, we also saw one of the lowest attended weeks with 35 people. It's just been a crazy time. We've also undergone some incredible changes to our setup. What do you guys think of these new things we've been trying? We're just gearing up for, once again, our grand opening on Easter Sunday. With so much going on, I thought it would be best to take a quick review of the series that we've covered so far. So let's jump in. We lost. And by we, I mean the church. By lost, I mean we really lost. We began by exploring how we lost the church, our very selves. God's people exchanged God's word for lies. We selected convenience and we elevated it above God in our lives. Let me just give you one example. The Bible is painstakingly clear that we are to be vitally connected to each other. He compares the church to a human body, every member playing a specific role, emphasizing the need to stick together. Oh, but the club sports! They have games on Sundays. And because my child's athleticism is in reality more important than my family's connectivity to the church, we choose sports. Frank, are you honestly suggesting that my child quit the sports team so we can be a part of church regularly? No. What I'm suggesting is that we put the most important things first. It's amazing how everything seems to just work out when we put our priorities in the correct order. Putting sports before vital connectivity with God's people, that's just one reason the American church has become such a mess. We spent an entire message talking about how we lost the church, and more importantly, what we can start doing to get it back. If you'd like to check out that message, you can find it on our Facebook page. After losing the church, we talked about how we lost science. We began by taking a look at the Roman Inquisition of the 17th century. It was a system created by the Roman Catholic Church designed to prosecute anyone that disagreed with the teachings of the Roman Church, even if their teachings clearly contradicted physical reality. My main man, Galileo, he observed something very interesting. It turns out that the Earth is not the center of the universe, but rather the planets revolve around the sun. That teaching is called heliocentrism. And for this amazing discovery, you know what he was awarded with? Indefinite imprisonment. He died 9 years later in house arrest. While it's true that scientific progress has been suppressed by religious institutions, it's also true that some of the world's greatest scientific discoveries have been made by Christians, often because of their faith in an intelligent Creator. Once again, you can find that message on our Facebook page. Now that I've caught you up to speed, there are still 2 topics left to cover in this series. Today, we're going to talk about how we lost the millennials. And next week, we'll wrap up this series with a look at how we lost personally. Remember, this series is designed to help us gear up for our, and this is your last chance, grand opening on your Chris, when you edit the video, just start it right before that point, if you will. By taking an honest look at where the American church is today, we can better understand what needs to happen to get us back on track. Now, today's topic is very close to my heart. Let me start with reading something from Romans 10. How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they've never even heard? How can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. No truer words have been spoken than, we lost the millennials. Have you noticed? Not only do I technically qualify as a millennial myself, but I also helped to raise them through my 17 years of youth ministry. Though there's no definitive consensus on when the millennial age bracket began, it's commonly believed that anyone born in the 80s or the 90s would qualify as one. Also known as Generation Y or Generation Next, millennials have been the focus of countless political conversations, group studies, and corporate surveys. There's been such a push to understand the mindset of these young people. You see, corporate America wants to recruit them so they can advance their companies, bringing them up to date in the future. The media wants to know how they think so they can more effectively sell products to them. Pop culture wants to define them. Radical groups want to convert them. And the American church? Well, the American church has done a dismal job at reaching them. Take a look in almost any sanctuary from California to New York, and you'll notice a shocking lack of 18 to 35-year-olds. I have a few ideas as to what caused this unfortunate dilemma. But before I get into that, let me give you a brief tour through the history of generational identities. Generational identities. While generations are not designated purely by an age bracket, a generation can be loosely defined as the sum of people born over a span of 20 years. You see, important historical events, social trends, and even parenting styles shape each generation's unique mindset and behavior. There is a sense of membership and bonding of people in the same generation. For example, the baby boomers. That's everyone born from 1945 to 1964. They share a unique bond in that they were mostly the result of the close of World War II. When the war ended, the boys came home and they started making lots of babies. I could only imagine being off at war for months. I mean, I'm away for a weekend, and I can't wait to get back to my beautiful bride, Ariana. And start pumping out that next generation, baby. While we're speaking of babies, we actually found the gender of our little bun in the oven. If you didn't know that Ariana was pregnant, she is. And the gender, if you haven't heard, is a boy! Yeah, we were really disappointed when we found that out. We really wanted a girl. I think Frozen did this to us. I'm serious. We've had Frozen posters on my daughter's wall, she's only 4, for years. And she, along with us, just expected that we'd be able to fulfill that familial bond. It just isn't happening. I found a way around this, though. I figure someone else in the delivery room probably has the same problem, just vice versa. And we can just trade the day. We can just trade. Ariana, I forgot to tell you, but we got it. We still have to figure out what we're going to call this little man of mine. So far, here are the names in the running. Tom and Gramsci. That's what my daughter came up with. We were in the ultrasound room. We said, it's a boy. And I said, what do you want to call her? She said, Tom. Or Gramsci. That's what she calls her grandfather. How charming would it be to call a little baby boy Gramsci? You might as well call him Voldemort, right? No offense, Dad. Anyways, the baby boomers. They shared many common bonds. Not just the war stories they heard from their parents growing up, but also a relatively small selection of music, for example. If you compare what was available to the baby boomers musically to what the millennials have to choose from today, well, there is no comparison. When the baby boomers were teenagers, mostly in the 60s and 70s, they had a relatively modest selection of musical artists to choose from. This is also when the infamous cassette tapes were at the peak of their popularity. So sharing music with others was also very limited. You fast forward to today, and you find this endless maze of musical artists and genres. Practically anyone with a computer and a dream of making it big can share their music with the entire world. This is actually how Justin Bieber got discovered. Blast you, Internet! I'm sorry, guys. Because the baby boomers were exposed to such a narrow amount of voices, musically, socially, and even through the media, defining them wasn't all that difficult. Therefore, reaching them was relatively easy. Think about it. If you found a way to reach some of them, chances are you could reach most of them. And no one knew that better than the late, great Chuck Smith, founder of the Calvary Chapel movement. He was a major player in the Jesus movement of the 60s and 70s, right when the baby boomers were entering their teens and early 20s. Born in 1927, Chuck was a member of the Silent Generation, also known as the Builders. These were the people that came before the baby boomers. Pastor Chuck understood his children's generation. And if you hear that car alarm, don't be distracted. Chris, would you mind closing that door until it stops? Thank you so much. Pastor Chuck understood his children's generation, which again, was much easier to do back then. And he began preaching the gospel in a way that they could easily relate to. The Calvary Chapel movement, if you haven't noticed, absolutely exploded. What began as one church in Costa Mesa, led by Pastor Chuck, is now an international network comprised of churches, colleges, radio stations, and so on. The founders of the Jesus movement cracked the code. They discovered how to effectively present the gospel to a generation in need, the baby boomers. Now, after the baby boomers is when evangelism started to become difficult. In comes Generation X. I mean, just from the name, they were doomed from the beginning. We assumed that because the baby boomers were so easily defined, that so too all of the following generations would be as well. And that is where the American church started to slip. The parents who got saved in the Jesus movement, they began realizing that their kids didn't want to be in church with them anymore. The services were too long. The speakers were boring. The music was out of date for them. That's when youth ministry truly began taking off. Shout out there. For the first time ever, the role of senior pastor began branching off into subcategories of pastoralship. It became commonplace for churches to hire not just senior pastors, but also youth pastors, children's directors, men's ministry leaders, women ministry leaders. The ever-expanding interests of Generation X call for a dramatic change in strategy. If we can't get them all into the sanctuary at one time, we'll just start splitting things up. And boy, did they split things up. Pretty soon, multi-generational families began parting ways as they entered church every Sunday. Children go here, junior hires there, high schoolers through that room, traditional service here, contemporary in the other sanctuary. And this practice has continued well through today. While there's nothing wrong with this way of doing church, it has produced the craziest, most unforeseen set of consequences. It was my freshman year of high school, and my friend, David Walker, I'll just let you know, the one that called this shirt a woman's blouse. You were wrong. You were wrong. He bugged me for months to join him in his youth ministry. I eventually caved in. I showed up the first night, and I absolutely fell in love. The sugar, the prizes, the girls. This strange man in his 30s, rocking a curly mullet known as the youth pastor, hugging everyone and loving on them. I had never been so welcomed at anything in my life. I got so involved, it's hard to explain. I joined every discipleship class, every leadership class. I never missed a week. I became a junior high leader, then a high school leader, all the way until the time came for me to graduate high school myself. All of a sudden, everything changed. You see, I no longer had the youth ministry to be a part of. It was as if my church had shut down. Or to be more honest, it was as if I had been kicked out of my church. So I started attending the Sunday services at that church. And they were fine. It was nice people, free bagels, everything was fine. It just wasn't the same. I had a hard time connecting. So I, along with a large group of recently graduates, decided to leave that church and give Sandals a try in Riverside. You guys heard of Sandals? It's now this huge church of more than 7,000 members. Well, we actually visited them when they were in the sanctuary still at Cal Baptist over there in Riverside. While I did enjoy their services way more than the other church, it still wasn't the same. Not only had the only form of church I ever knew changed, but everything else in my life was changing too. For the first time, I had a full-time job, and that sucked. For the first time, I was paying bills, and that really sucked. You guys remember when you started doing that? Perhaps the worst part of it all was when my friends started moving on. Greg joined the Air Force. David got married. All of my friends started getting busy. I was thrown into adulthood without a map. It was when I needed the church the most that it felt like it was no longer there for me. This is why so many churches have so few 18 to 35-year-olds. The church did a fairly good job at reaching us in junior high and high school. But there was no plan for what would come after that. We millennials didn't just stick together when we graduated. You see, the common bonds that united the baby boomers, at least culturally, they weren't present for the following generations. Why? Let me make this simple for you. Technology. Think about that. Technological advances and our access to them, they just exploded in the 90s. The internet was born, and the rest is history. Everyone got computers. Shortly after, everyone got cell phones. The world became so small as we started connecting like never before. MySpace, if you remember that. Facebook, social media. You could find anything or anyone you wanted to. It appeared as if we were more connected than ever before. It turns out, however, that we were actually becoming more isolated. You see, it's easy to have 100 friends on Facebook. I actually have like more than 300. But it's impossible. It is impossible to share real, intimate connections with that many people. It's impossible. We keep up with everyone. Friends from high school, old teachers, people we met on vacation, for crying out loud. But knowing what's happening with those people is very different from knowing those people. Now, why am I sharing all this? Because if we really want to get the millennials back in church, and in the process save future generations, we have to understand why we lost them. The explosion in technology changed everything. It even interrupted the Generation X age bracket. Depending on which source you use, I technically qualify as both a member of Generation X and as a millennial. The boom technologically, it just shook everything up. The real cutoff between the baby boomers and everyone after them is technology. Now, few people would argue that point, but there's still an important distinction to make. Although technology created the biggest divide between generations that we've ever seen, it is not technology that's going to bring them back. All technology did was open more doors for people to go through. The collective identities of previous generations, that no longer exists. It's a thing of the past. There's too many options now. There's too many voices out there. There's too much information. People have gone off in way too many directions. You cannot uniformly categorize them. There will never be another event like Woodstock. I know that's random, but it was one musical gathering that collectively and accurately defined not just the musical interests, but the emerging worldviews of an entire generation. That will never, ever happen again. It can't in today's world. Because there's too many choices today. There's too many genres, too many political opinions, too many parenting styles, way too many worldviews. So what do? How do we get the millennials back in church? Are you ready for this? We get them back one at a time. Church, I want you to understand this. If we go after the millennials the same way we went after the preceding generations, the same way we went after the baby boomers, it's not going to work. Above all, millennials are individuals. If you want to collectively group them together, that's what they are. They're individuals. They cannot be clumped together. Some are atheists, and so we approach them in a certain way. Others are agnostics. We reach them differently. Some are into music, and so they can be reached with music. Others are not, so we do not use music in our approach to get them. Some are actors. Others are activists. In this global melting pot, which is the future, we have fathers, nurses, athletes, bisexuals, deists. I mean, I could go on for hours. And only the loving touch of a godly family member or friend is going to be powerful enough to convince them that Jesus is who He said He was. It used to be that all you had to do was get them to church. That's what worked for the baby boomers, and that's what I see the baby boomers doing today with their kids, and it's failing. If I could just get little Johnny to church, everything will work out. No, it doesn't. The church can no longer do your duties, not just as a parent, but as a Christian, which is to teach them the ways of God, which is to raise them and disciple them. God is looking for serious people with serious love who will seriously, you guys aren't ready for this word. God is looking for serious people with serious love who will seriously disciple future generations. We will bring the millennials back, one person at a time. We will go into their arenas, learning their rules, and we will labor intensively. We will pray, we will wrestle, we will listen, and we will cry. Ultimately, we will win them back. Can I get an amen? Amen. Is there a millennial in your life that you care about? Because we all know there's millennial in your lives that you don't care about. Or how about a member of Generation Z? That's anyone born in the 2000s on. Are you laboring for them? Did you give up on them? I wouldn't blame you, because they are pains in the butt. Do you know how hard I try? How hard I try to get some of my old millennials here? I work my butt off, and I get about 2 or 3 of them every week. There's like 20 of them. I'm dying over here, but I can't give up on them. Is their soul and eternal destination your primary focus? Your primary focus, not their education. Not their athleticism. Have you discipled them? Have you taken them through a structured discipleship process designed to lay a solid biblical foundation that will last the rest of their lives? I'm talking to you, parents and grandparents. I'm also talking to you, siblings and children. Yes, you can disciple your parents. I've had the honor of doing that with my own mother, who's now rocking our children's ministry. And because she watches these every week, let's give my mom a round of applause. You might be thinking, what if those people are not ready for such a serious commitment? Then find out what they are ready for. Pray for favor with them. Use your influence in their lives. Any success I've had in ministry has always been for my ability to tap into the influence I have in people's lives. I don't just sit around kicking the dirt hoping that something happens. No, I have influence in certain people's lives. And I use that influence to gently and sometimes roughly push them into the best thing for them. Find out what they like, and then creatively bridge the gap from there. Does your kid like shopping? I originally put, does your daughter like shopping? But it's 2017. It's okay if boys like that too. Does your kid like shopping? Then make a deal with them. One new outfit for every 3 conversations they have about God and life with you. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just trying to think out loud here. Do they like eating? The answer is probably yes. Do they like sports? Once again, it depends. How about non-sports like cheerleading or golf? Are they into those?
Wow.
It's my man Doug. He loves golfing. I'm just messing with him. Folks, I got a question. Are you ready for this? Have you been discipled? Have you been taken through a structured discipleship process that helps you understand Christian basics, apologetics, how to defend your faith? Do you know God's Word? Have you studied to show yourself approved? If you haven't been discipled, would you like to be? Take a look in that bulletin. There's a couple opportunities for you to come up. Look for the 2 groups starting up in the next few weeks that say Alpha Film Series. They're going to take you through a structured, in-depth discipleship process. Raise your hand if you went through the first 6-month discipleship process with me. And give them a big round of applause. Nearly a third of the people in here, we spent 6 months every single Sunday busting our butts after church service to go grab some food, meet at the Ruggs house, and get serious about our discipleship. Yeah, we lost. But we don't have to continue losing. Once again, the writer of Romans nailed it in chapter 10. I hope this verse has brand new meaning to you now. How then can they call on the one that they haven't believed in? Notice it doesn't say, how can they believe in the one that they haven't heard of? All the millennials have heard of Jesus. They haven't believed in him. That's where we come in. How can they call on the one they haven't believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard, or at least heard of accurately? And how can they hear without someone preaching or telling them? How can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news. If you're a Christian, I'd like to call the worship team up. If you're a Christian, you are commanded to reach the people in your life. You simply commanded. If you're not currently fighting for those people, well then start fighting for them. If you're a Christian, you are commanded to disciple them. Not to simply rely on the church to do that for you. You are commanded to train them in the ways of Jesus. If you're not currently discipling them, start discipling them. If you're afraid of that, well, welcome to the club. I've been doing this for a long time. I wake up every morning just not sure what I'm doing. If you don't know how to get started, then don't leave this morning without talking with me. Because as I said before, we have some exciting, wildly effective opportunities coming up in the next few weeks. 95% of Christians have never shared the gospel. 95. And that 5% that do, even less than those 5%, are making disciples of the people in their lives. Folks, I gave everything I had to start this church. Everything. And I will not stop until you get it. I will not stop until you wake up and you stop giving me the nod and you start living out the calling on your life. Romans 10 says, how can they go unless they're sent? I'm going to send you this morning. I'm going to ask the folks that have been in the back with us in the past few weeks to pray. If you would join me there as well. I'm going to meet you there in just a moment with some anointing oils. If you are not currently reaching, fighting for, and discipling the people in your lives, you come back there. You get prayed for. We're going to anoint you with oil, and we're going to pray that the Lord would fill you with a fresh vision for the people you love. Can we get the lights back there? Let's hearts to enter into worship here. If you're going to be praying, if you can make your way back there now. Father, we come before you. I ask, Lord Jesus, that you would please help us to make the connection from our heads to our hearts, and finally down to our mouths and our hands. It doesn't seem like a long distance, but for some reason it's become impossibly long. Jesus, many of us know these things, and yet so many of us are simply not doing these things. For everyone here convinced that they're performing their role as a discipler in a satisfactory way, and it's simply not true, I pray that you would rapture their attention. I pray that you would grab them by the cheeks in such a loving yet firm way, and you would help them to understand that the monthly conversation where you offer prayer is not discipling them. There must be structure. There must be labor. There must be preparation, and there must be passion, Father. For those of us that feel strangely ill-equipped, would your Spirit fill us now and make up for what we lack? God, visit us with fire and passion. Father, as I told you recently, I don't care how many people come here on Sundays. I just care that every single one feels challenged and rises to the call. If we are serious about your command to reach the people in our lives and to make Jesus lovers and followers out of them, then Father, may we begin so today. Move us, Father. Speak to us and come be with us now. In Jesus' name.
Let's stand. Call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, the free made deeper than my feet could ever wander. My faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my
encourage you, if you've never raised a single hand during worship to God, believe me, I know how frightening that is. I remember the days. I'd like to encourage you to do that. Just as a symbol of, Lord, I'm willing to go past my current comfort zone. I want to worship you more. And I want to involve my body. I want you to have all that I am. I just would like to encourage you to give that a shot. And for anyone here that feels a message, a short word, that perhaps the Lord is impressing on your heart, it may just be that the Lord is giving you a word that He wants you to share with the body here now. If you've done this before, or if you've never done this, we're all just learning how to do this together. I'd like to open the floor for a moment to give any of you an opportunity to speak something that you believe the Lord is impressing upon your heart. We'll just keep the music going here for a few moments.
I'd just like to say that millennials are some of the best snippers out of frauds and fakes. I'm a millennial, so I know. Think about it, our English teachers have ingrained in us that you check the source of your facts, of everything that you hear. So if you were telling me something, if you're telling me about God, about being in church, about Jesus, and living your life, I'm going to check the source. And if I see your life and I feel like it's a lie, I'm not going to listen to anything that you have to say. So if you're telling your kids, hey, come to church with me, and then on the weekend you're going out and getting drunk and who knows what, or if you just yell at them all the time, they're going to be like, I don't want that Jesus. So if you need to go get discipled, if you don't know what that means, then that's probably a good idea that you should start working on yourself. We just want to live life with you. We don't want you to think that you're above us and better than us because you're older. That doesn't matter to us anymore. We love people that are older than us, and we want you to respect us the same way. We just want to live life with you.
I'm going to share the same word that the Lord impressed on me last week, because I believe He's saying it again. Back from the book of Chronicles, He gives a promise. He says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sins and will heal their land. So if you're willing, would you extend your hands to heaven with me? Father, we're calling out to you, and we're asking you to speak to us, and we're asking you to increase your amount of favor upon us. First, within the people of whose lives we love, and second, into the rest of the world as well. I pray that the people within our spheres of influence would feel strangely drawn to us, and that you would open up divine opportunities for us to speak a well-timed word in the right situation, one that would get past the defenses of their minds and hearts and slowly begin to turn them to you. Increase our favor, God, and increase our favor collectively as a local expression of your body. I pray that you would bless us as we prepare for our grand opening. Whatever you want this church to be, would you make it be that, God? Fill us with power, and by your Spirit, drive us forward, unified in heart, spirit, and purpose. As we close with one more song of worship, I'd like to remind you, this is an opportunity for you to engage your body in worship as well. If you have raised a hand, perhaps kneeling would be the next step for you. Let's go deeper into the presence of God. He's got the greatest things waiting for you.
I told him
Father, my, how we adore you and love you. Once again, help us this week. Give us fresh vision and a renewed sense of vigor as we passionately pursue and label for not just the millennials, but every person within our sphere of influence. We love you, God. May we find ourselves doing things these next 2 weeks that we normally would never be caught dead doing. Reaching out, going to neighbors' homes, handing out flyers, taking people under our wing, taking the next step. Hallelujah, God. Let's give God a big round of applause. All right, shoot your eyes. The lights are coming. Let me keep you for just one more second here. I and a small group of people are going to be meeting after teardown is all done in about 30 minutes in front of the gates here at the school. And we're going to come up with a plan of how we're going to go pass out flyers to these homes directly across the way. We're doing it today. So if you are interested in doing that, this would be a great way for you to learn some tactics on how to engage people you don't know very well. We're going to have just a little class ahead of time, about 5 minutes, and we're going to go in teams. So if you'd like to push yourself, this is a really good opportunity for you to do that. Again, just stick around for a while, or if you want to grab some food and then come back, that would be awesome as well. I love you guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.